so much, Lori, for that great introduction. So as she mentioned, I'm Eve Weston. I am a television writer who learned about virtual reality, and now I'm an experience design strategy and storytelling consultant. And I'm also a professor of television writing and immersive storytelling at various universities in the Los Angeles area. And I'll be speaking today. It'll be myself, Jessica Cantor, my creative directing partner, who's going to join us virtually. And here we've got Iris Ichishita. Do you want to give a quick, brief hello before I continue on with the presentation?
Sure.
Just introduce yourself.
Happy to. Just a quick introduction. Iris Ichishita. I'm, as Lori mentioned, co-founder and CEO of a new NFT platform that is family-focused and kid-safe. Like Eve, I have a background in entertainment, so I came up as a producer, working for both Hallmark and then most recently for Mattel. I left Mattel back in October to found my first company, and I'm really excited to talk to you about NFTs today.
Great. And so before we get to NFTs, the heart of the matter, let's start with the metaverse, right? NFTs are a new frontier for storytelling, but they fit within the ecosystem of the metaverse, which there's been a big question about exactly what it is, and I thought we got some really great definitions this morning at the opening keynote here. And here are a few ways that we've seen it defined that I think are helpful. You can read them to yourself. I'll give some highlights, right? It's a virtual reality space in which users can interact with a computer-generated environment and other users. Really, we're talking about 3 dimensions and social elements. And I like this idea that's been discussed of the metaverse really being the next internet, right? Right now we are interacting with each other through the internet, we are getting data, we are having experiences, but it's all through a screen. So we can think of the metaverse of what happens if we take away the screen and we start having experiences, we experience the internet. I think that's a really nice, simple way to think about where we're headed. That being said, we want to understand it a little bit more granularly, like what is the metaverse? How do we build it? What does it consist of? And so here's a nice diagram that walks us through the 7 layers of the metaverse, right? First, we've got the infrastructure. Then on top of that, we have a human interface. Then we have decentralization, which is a key tenet of the metaverse. It involves spatial computing. It has a creator economy. There are elements of discoverability, and ultimately it's about experience, right? So those are the 7 layers of the metaverse. I don't know about you, but when I hear 7 layers, my mind immediately goes to dip. So just to make it really easy for you to understand NFTs, we can think of NFTs as the guacamole, right? But if you look closely, right, they're part of the creator economy, which also includes some other elements. And so maybe we get more specific. They're not just the guacamole, they're the onions in the guacamole. To some people, they're sweet. To others, they make you want to cry. So that's how we're looking at this. That's where NFTs fit into the metaverse. But ultimately, they're a platform, right? And so if you look at the evolution of technology, we've had a lot of different technological platforms evolve, starting with this timeline that doesn't cover everything, but a good chunk of our lifetimes, right? We've got radio, then movie theaters, television, VHS tapes, CDs, DVDs and internet, smartphones, right? We see this progression. Most of these were not invented with the idea of them being entertainment platforms. They were technological innovations. And then what do we as humans do with them? Of course, we tell stories with them. That's what we do. And it now seems obvious to those of us who've grown up with television that it's an entertainment medium, right? But what about smartphones? For those of us who were using telephones before they were smart, who would have thought that we would be watching shows on our phones, right? So it might sound a little crazy at first that NFTs are a storytelling platform, but this is what we do with technology. We find ways to tell stories. So NFTs are just one of the many metaverse story opportunities. Metaverse storytelling opportunities include all current types of storytelling, right? It can be a video, it can be a song, it can be a GIF, it can be a picture. None of that's going to go away. We can bring all of that into the metaverse. At the same time, the metaverse will also allow for new ways of telling stories, experientially, things that we haven't done before. Like Lori mentioned, I created the first 360 virtual reality sitcom. That's a new kind of experience that we haven't been able to have before. And so we're going to have these immersive, interactive story experiences that I'm personally really excited about. And so NFTs are just one of the new ways to tell stories, and they can use existing methods of telling stories and also pioneer new ways of telling stories. So let's get into it. How do you tell stories with NFTs? Well, there are a few different ways, and I was having a great conversation at lunch with one of my colleagues about how a lot of the stories that we're seeing in the metaverse and in NFTs right now are ancillary content, right? The content and the stories exist somewhere else. Marvel's a great example. That story world exists outside of the metaverse, and then you can make an NFT that may have a character or something from that world, but that doesn't mean that the story is being told in NFTs, right? It's being reflected. But there's also the possibility for telling a unique story, for having original content where the story itself is being told in NFTs and in the metaverse. And there are two clear-cut ways that we can think about these kinds of stories. And those are bottom-up and top-down storytelling, which I will define a little further as we get into some examples which might help. So first, just some examples of NFTs as ancillary content to really help wrap your head around it. Here's a picture from Stoner Cats, which is a much talked about NFT. Now, it's an animated show, but the show itself isn't an NFT. The NFT acts as a sort of ticket, where if you own the NFT, then you get access to watch the content, right? So there's a relationship between the content and the NFT, but the NFT is not the story itself. Now we can move forward and talk about examples of NFTs as original content. So we'll talk about bottom up, but I'm gonna touch on top down first because that's probably the type of storytelling that's most familiar to you. So top down storytelling is the traditional storytelling that we're used to, where the author or creator tells you the story, right? A book. They're top down, they're telling you what the story is. You don't have to come up with anything, you don't have to participate. So that's what we're used to in books and movies and so on. Now, bottom up is really interesting. It's where the creator sort of gives you, the audience or community, puzzle pieces or clues or tools or objects, and then the community decides what the story is, and it builds up around them. And that's really exciting, and that's been something we've been seeing a lot of in the NFT space. Specifically, there's a project Loot that I think is a great example of this, where they minted these NFTs that were loot bags, which is essentially a list of items. And these items happen to sound like things you might need on a quest, right? A shield or a sword or something like that. But there was no explanation, no world that it existed in, just these items. And then it was the people who received them that gave them meaning and value, and they decided that there was value in scarcity. They decided that if something was rare, it was worth more. They decided what the world was, what the background was, what the story was that these objects existed in. So that's a great example of bottom-up storytelling. We haven't seen quite as much top-down storytelling in the NFT space. There's some of those that are being shared are shows. Think about, again, I think one of Glue Factory is an animated show, but the show itself, it's not clear that it's an NFT, right? But it's top-down storytelling. And one of the things that Jessica Cantor and I are playing with in this space is how do we tell stories top-down in the NFTs themselves, right? So that there's an original story that is told in the NFTs. And there's so many different ways that we can do this, and we're really just scratching the surface. So one of the things we'll talk to you about is a case study of our project, Virtually in Love, and the love tokens that tell a story in NFTs. Here's a little video where Jessica will join us.
I'm here with Jessica Cantor, the other half of Lola Tango, and we're going to walk you through a case study of Virtually in Love.
Yeah, I'm excited I could join you today virtually. As Eve mentioned, we together are in the process of writing a feature film, and it's a love story, a romantic comedy about a couple or two people who meet in two places. In real life, they meet and don't like each other, and online, they meet in the metaverse and fall in love without knowing that they know each other in real life. But the love story that we see in the film happens in real life, and the love story that happens in the metaverse happens across NFTs. And so I wanted to pass the baton over to Eve to talk you through that love story.
Awesome. Well said, Jessica. So you can see the first beat is that she places a personal ad, and that's how they initially meet, and then they make a plan to get together. Of course, they do it in the metaverse. So there they have a spark as they reach for a virtual book. And after that successful encounter, they make a plan to make another date. And then at their virtual coffee date in the metaverse, it goes so well, they decide it's time to meet in real life. Only when she shows up at the real life cafe to introduce herself, she recognizes him. And so she does go up and talk to him, but she doesn't reveal who she is because she's nervous about how it'll be received given their animosity in the real world. So then through their metaverse communications, they work through the miscommunication because she plays it as a no-show, right? She didn't want to reveal her identity. And when they finally do reconnect in real life and the reveal happens, she builds up the confidence to admit it was her all along. Then he reveals that he was hoping it was her all along. After that, they kiss and sparks fly, and we're hoping for a happily ever after.
Yes. And so when we first came up with this concept, we very quickly were like, oh, it's going to be Valentine's Day in 3 weeks. Let's get this up and put it up and spread some like love tokens in the air and give people a way to give a love story as an NFT or give it an NFT as a love story for a Valentine's Day gift. And so we chose Mintable as a platform and we put them up. And somehow it didn't work. A couple people tried to buy them. They complained that they couldn't. We were pretty sure like there was a glitch in what was happening with Mintable. And so
oh my gosh, new technology not working.
So, that gave us a second to really dive into the NFT world. And what a blessing, because we had so much more opportunity of what we can do with these NFTs for our film and kind of adding to our collection over time and what we really want to get out of it. What are we going to give our audience and our community that we build who buy these NFTs and help us make our feature film? And so some of the ways we're reigniting this story or I'm trying to find the right word, but reevaluating. Relaunching, reevaluating how we want to tell the story of being part of our community. And so, what do you get if you purchase one of these NFTs besides the incredible storytelling and the piece of art that you saw on the screen? Well, you would get access to the filmmaking process, potential one-on-ones with us, Q&As about where we are with the story, Q&As with the cast. Maybe the NFT would give you access to a virtual premiere that only our community would be able to watch and their families in their home, because we can't shield their eyes if it's playing in their home. Potentially we could even share, if we sell the movie, in future revenues that we make off of this film or future content that we release for our community to own and build upon, even potentially ancillary storylines that come out of these amazing characters we're creating. And so, we also were really excited to start with a love story because we just don't see enough of that yet in Web3. So we're excited to launch, and we'll have some ways for you to track what we're doing that Eve will announce on stage.
Thanks, Jessica. So yes, as she mentioned, I'll circle back at the end with an opportunity for you guys to share your thoughts on where you see value in this, because that's something that gets asked a lot about NFTs. Is people are trying to understand it, and they're saying, well, I don't understand why it's valuable. Where's the value in this? And we have to remember that we are writing the story of NFTs and of the metaverse. It's an experimental time right now, and that's what people are doing. They're trying to figure out how to use this technology and how to tell stories in this space, and you're a part of that, right? So we all need to work together to figure out what we find valuable, what we find useful, and how we want to shape this space. This is just a quick synopsis sort of some of the value propositions that Jessica alluded to, right? An NFT can be crowdfunding. It can be a cross between Kickstarter and traditional investment. Instead of buying a t-shirt, you buy a digital asset, and that digital asset could potentially act as a share. And you're invested in the project itself. You can also invest in the IP. The contracts can be written different ways. So there's one option where the creator owns the IP, but you invest in it and you profit in success. It's also possible that with your purchase of the NFT, you become the owner of the IP, and then maybe the creator licenses it back to you. And so you gain value that way. There's NFTs can offer utility, right? Upside for early adopters of story worlds. It can give them exclusive access. It can give them opportunities for education. Jessica and I are members of the BFF community, and they've been offering a lot of talks and webinars and panels and speaker series about the Web3 space to educate their members. And so that's a value to people. But value is in the eye of the beholder, right? So what do you want from your communities? What makes an NFT valuable to you? What makes a community valuable to you? There's also something about the community itself, right? People who are investing in NFTs, there's something that drew them to it. There's a shared interest, shared values, shared taste. And so to get to connect with other people, sometimes that's value. So this is by no means an exhaustive list. It's merely a starting point to get us thinking about how we want to have value in these things. And with that, speaking of value and platforms and community, Iris is going to take a moment and tell you a little bit about the exciting stuff that she's doing with Toekenz.
Thank you so much, Eve. And I'm so excited to talk with you a bit about our platform, Toekenz. We actually just announced our platform last week. You might have seen some coverage in crypto, family, or new media. But Cryptos and Kitties, the parent company, which is now called Toekenz, has a product called Toekenz, which is an iOS and Android-based application. And we are the first on-chain and ad-free branded NFT experiences that are family-focused and kid-safe. So as you can see here, great for families and safe for kids. Before I talk a little bit more about Toekenz, I did want to just go quickly back to Eve's previous slide and talk about how amazing and powerful NFTs are, not only as a story and narrative and storytelling and narrative vehicle, but also for these amazing innovations when you're talking about crowdfunding through verifiable blockchain-based tokens, investing in IP, being a part owner in a newfound or NFT native IP, and then these amazing benefits and promotions that you can get from utility and community, which is really where my platform is focused. We want to give people who purchase our digital collectibles immediate utility for the NFTs that they purchase by providing access to games and to some of these brands' first Web3 and online fan communities. So that's a big way that we introduce these two elements to what we're doing with Toekenz. Excuse me, a little bit more about our value proposition. So Toekenz enables kids to build their first portfolios of digital collectibles, to fund their first savings accounts, and to gain valuable skills for navigating this thing that we call the metaverse as it evolves, and all by engaging with the characters that they already know and love. So we're not just another app, we're actually consolidating what we consider to be a fragmented end user experience for families, where we're rolling up branded gaming, videos, financial education, and digital collectibles in the form of NFTs into one app. And on top of that, we layer in a real metaverse marketplace. So this is going to be some families and some kids' first experience with a metaverse economy. And we're enabling brands as well to dip their toe into Web3 community building with future flexible and sustainable assets. And then lastly, one of our value propositions, not only for brands, but also for our investors. What did I do? Did I do something to do that? I feel like Alan Grant in Jurassic Park, who's like, me and tech, we don't mix. Nope. That's all right. I can wing it.
Do you want to take some questions? Because we're running a little out of time.
Sure, we can take some questions. I think maybe I'll just close in talking about Toekenz that what we were discussing before, right? Storytelling is, we're almost back up, is really essential to what we're building, because that's the best way to engage kids and families, right? The technology is really important, and it's key for our young people to be able to navigate this brave new world that's going to be largely virtual. But the way to get them really engaged, of course, is through stories, is through characters, and through what Eve had described as bottom-up storytelling, right? Where we put creator tools in the hands of kids, where we give them templated tools where they can create whole new digital creations using our partners' IP to really express a part of themselves that they love, a story that they love, or a character that they love. So this is a key way of engaging what we consider our target audience, and frankly, an underserved aspect of the Web3 industry with what we're doing on Toekenz. So it's just another example of how we can use all of these various storytelling tools through the Toekenz platform. And yeah, we do have a few more minutes, and it doesn't look like our presentation is back up, so happy to take questions, both Eve and I.
Sure, yeah, and we'd love to take this opportunity. When you ask questions, please introduce yourself, but also, like I said, we want to hear what you want in NFTs. So introduce yourself and tell us what value you would want to see in the space, and then ask your question. And then hopefully we'll get up a slide at the end that has our contact information for follow-up, and also a link where if you don't get the chance to speak to us and share your thoughts now, you can send them so we can incorporate them going forward. Yeah, we're happy to take
Any questions? Okay, great. While I'm walking over, I'm just curious, because I just love all that you're talking about. Are you guys, Lori Schwartz hosting the track, are you from Storytech, are you working with schools? Because I would love it if, like, the schools that my kid were at were looking at this in an operationalized way, because right now my daughter just asked me to get on Discord, and I'm absolutely terrified. Discord terrifies me. It's so purple. Anyway, I would love to know your thoughts, and then we'll hear from this gentleman.
I think that it's a great question, Lori, and we, just like we're utilizing characters and IP to engage kids in a way that they really understand, we need to find them where they are. And they're already, actively engaged with YouTube, so we're going to have a lot of educational videos there. And they're also engaged in their schools and their after-school enrichment programs. So an after-school enrichment program could be a really great way to find kids where they are, to give them valuable tools. I mean, my daughter, who is actually graduating from kindergarten tomorrow, has a Minecraft-based after-school enrichment program where she learns how to use metaverse economies and how to build in a digital world. And I could see something like that working really well for what we're doing with Toekenz.
Well, mazel tov on the graduation. And here, gentlemen, tell us your name.
Hi, everyone. Hi, Eve and Iris. My name is Raj Sadapur. I'm here on behalf of Deloitte. I'd love to hear a little bit more about, my, I think, most interesting part of NFTs and media to me is probably the choose your own adventure aspect. I remember when Black Mirror Bandersnatch came out and everyone was freaking out about that, but being able to interact with traditionally just, one direction content in a very different ways is super interesting and engaging to me. But I'd love to hear more about your perspective on the depth and complexity and time and energy that it takes to create a piece of media and the ways you can go to market with it, with that NFT. To me, if you create an image, it's a lot easier to just make one NFT and sell that versus making an entire feature film and then losing that to one person as an NFT. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on how you approach different sizes and levels of effort for media for that.
Got it. Okay, yeah, thank you for your question. If I understand it correctly, there's lots of different ways, especially through what's called generative collections through NFTs. So you can create algorithmically based collections where you have different characteristics, different properties, different traits, different personalities that you give to an NFT, even if it's not a character. It can be imbued with different attributes and powers that, when you switch them all up, become endless permutations where you can result with hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of NFTs that are all unique and yet all all original, and yet using some of the same parts. So generative NFT collections are a great way to give users entirely unique pieces of digital art that are also part of a broader collection and have, related parts. That way, these assets become really future flexible, because as they enter the metaverse, their powers and their attributes can be applied in different ways. I'm speaking very theoretically here, but the idea is that the more descriptions, the more metadata that you add to an NFT at its time of mint gives you all that much more flexibility and opportunity with storytelling as those NFTs are taken throughout the metaverse.
Yeah, I love that response. It's been very exciting to see, as people are playing this space, to have an NFT and then see it change, right? You don't expect that. You think you're buying a finished work of art, but it can evolve. The other thing I just want to speak to really quickly is your comment about your interest in interactive. Since we have a room full of people who are here who are clearly interested in storytelling on different platforms, if you want to know more than we were able to cover in the 20 minutes today, I just want to mention that my book is out, 10 Kick-Ass Careers for Storytellers, and one of the chapters is actually interviews with the folks at Netflix who did Bandersnatch and other interactive shows, and basically it talks to pioneers in storytelling across platforms and explores the different ways to tell stories in different formats. So that might interest you, and if I have some copies at the conference this weekend, if you want to come talk to me. And then also I'll just draw your eyes to this slide, which has our contact information. So if you didn't get to ask all the questions that you have today, or you want to continue the conversation, you should feel free to reach out to myself, Jess, or Iris to do so. We're excited about this space and always happy to talk storytelling with folks.